Hey, we're live. Hello. I'm hoping this is working for everybody because the format of StreamYard has changed quite considerably. Or maybe I started creating things called scenes when I understood what that meant, but I've since forgotten. Um, Sorry, I've got Kirralie here waiting patiently beside me. I usually keep people in the background and then bring them on stage, but I literally forgot, and I was scared of losing her, to be honest, with this setup. Kirralie, hello. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really glad that you have decided to tell your story because it is a shocking one and it's not very well known. Because, like, of course, in Australia, the big story about at the moment is the ludicrous situation that that Giggle and oh, her name has just jumped out of my head. Is it
Roxy Tickle v Giggle? Like, you
Roxy
can't make it
Tickle?
up, can you?
No, no, I would say his name. I've forgotten my good friend's name, who's been
Oh,
tormented.
Sal Grover. Sal Grover.
Oh, yes, by Sal Grover, who is being put through the most ludicrous Kafkaesque adventure by your government, and now I find out your story. So first of all, just give us a little bit of background. Do you come from a conservative background or a left-wing background? What is your history leading up to getting into so much trouble?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Graham. It's such an honor to speak with you in person. Finally, we've messaged, and it's really lovely to be in person with you. I am a conservative Christian. I have a Bachelor of Theology. I've grown up. Just in pretty much the Aussie stereotype, the whole she'll be right, mate, fair go. That's I think my life epitomizes that Aussie larrikin spirit, all of those sort of things,
Sure.
just a
Live and
really
live and let live.
mainstream.
Yeah, live and let live, essentially.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just because I'm a Christian, I have no expectation that other people are. I just really embrace and enjoy all people, and that's just been my motto. And I love the way I live. I love the freedoms that Australia has had up until recently, where I love nothing more than a good argy bargy, and let's have a debate around the dinner table, in particular around the barbecue, sitting outside. I live on 100 acres, so it's always fun to hear other views, and
So
like you
what was
said, live and let live.
so when did you notice that this was a different sort of discussion that you couldn't enter into with a sort of light heart?
Oh, look, there's been a lot of things. I call myself an accidental activist, Graham. And in 2011, I
We all
accidentally
are.
uncovered, yeah, that's right. Accidentally uncovered some halal certification scams that were going on in Australia. And, and through that, that's a long story in itself, but
Mhm.
exposed those scams. It ended up before the Supreme Court in Australia. It ended up in a Senate inquiry in Australia. And through that, I got, quite a following just for saying things as they are, and then became politically active, commentating on lots of different things. And then through the same sex marriage campaign in Australia, I really advocated for legal and civil rights for same sex couples. But I said, if we change the definition of words like marriage, we're going to end up changing the definitions of other words.
Yeah.
And obviously, that's exactly, what's happened. Whether that was a direct result or not, I'll let people make up their own minds, but I could see that if you redefine certain words that have had meanings throughout history, culture, all the rest of it, then that's going to be dangerous. Straight away, the word woman, the word children or child was redefined to become mature minor, and we suddenly had this explosion of books for 3-year-olds that were about sexualized content. We suddenly have the word woman meaning men, like it includes men, people with a penis, and it was horrifying.
Mm.
And seeing all of the fallout and the consequences. So that was around 2018, 2019. We started an organization called Binary. That there's male, there's female, that's all, folks, and and have been
Yeah,
campaigning ever since.
and I want to make it clear, like, we probably have differing views on the marriage equality thing or the how that goes. Personally, I think it's a slightly different thing because I think they're both man-made constructs, whereas male and female are secure. We've all agreed, whatever your belief system is, we've all agreed that on these certain key words, you know. So you could be right, though. Maybe it did start to, maybe the common agreement we had on meaning started to decay then. I think there could be a case made for that. But I definitely think that the sort of shock troop tactics of destroying the word woman and making the word woman problematic in some instances is something that has had is something that is extremely important to fight. And I think that the organization binary sounds like people might think it's a silly thing, but it is so important to our understanding of the world, and our ability to communicate with each other, that the binary nature of sex is maintained.
Exactly. And communication is key for a civil society, for a democratic society. We have to have a common understanding of words. Otherwise, we end up in the situation I am in, and I'll tell you my story in a minute. But, you know, I'm literally have been found guilty of unlawful vilification for misgendering, for calling men males. And it's absurd. It's absolutely ridiculous that, you know, there's laws in Australia and in other parts of the world, but particularly in Australia, where it defies nature, it defies reality. And, you know, you can write something that defies nature, but it still doesn't change nature. The natural order of things is there is only male and female, and that's it. Yet I'm being penalised, as is Sal Grover, as are many women in Australia. You know, we have doctors who are being struck off. We've got breastfeeding experts who have been dragged through the courts. So many instances in Australia, but our media does not, will not, cannot report on these things because they're afraid of being dragged through the courts as well. Well, I'm not afraid, and I won't be gaslit. I won't be intimidated. This is too important an issue for all, not just women, but for people in Australia. If we don't have the ability to speak truthfully, let alone freely, then we're no longer a democracy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's it. And it's like, you know, again, you know, you come from a conservative background, but as you know, the first people to be cancelled in all this were left-wing women. It would, you know, and one of the things that I do like about this is that it has seeing how conservatives and left-wing women have come together on this one. It really gives me hope for a sort of non-partisan movement. You know,
absolutely.
You know, it really, some of the friendships that have been formed across the aisle, so to speak, is something that I'm kind of extremely proud of in this fight, you know.
100%, Graham. I've made some great friends. Sal Grover is a great friend of mine, Angie Jones and others. And this is exactly what you say. It's not a left or right issue. It is not a religious issue. It's not an ethnic issue. It's not a socioeconomic issue. This is an issue that affects all people, particularly women and children, but it affects everyone. And as you know, as a man, it's affected and impacted your life greatly. So it's too important an issue to boil it down to some, oh, it's left or right, or it's conservative or, you know, progressive. It's not. It's just a basic fundamental human issue.
Yeah, I've been enjoying like watching. There's a writer over here named David Aranovich. He's sort of a kind of centrist fence sitter on this subject, you know, and I've been enjoying watching him wriggle under the kind of paradoxes that this thing brings up. I mean, you should watch his conversation with Maya Forstater. It's hilarious how nervous it makes him. You know, he's terrified of it. And the thing I love about you, Kirralie, is that from the moment you came into this, and I can't remember exactly why I contacted you first of all, but from the moment you came into this, you had this attitude, a sort of humorous. I mean, you can't. You're like me. I can't take them seriously.
Not at all. I can't. And it's like it's worth mocking. It's worth having a joke over. You know, it has very serious implications. My life has been turned upside down, inside out. You know, next week we'll find out what my punishment is for being, you know, found guilty. But I just know that in the end we win because it's reality.
Yeah, all they do is they make historically famous people out of ordinary people who weren't going to say anything if you didn't
That's
if you didn't
exactly
come
right.
if you didn't come after them. Let's tell the story, because you've mentioned being arrested a few times, and I'm aware that the audience might be a bit lost. So
Sure.
what is the source of your current woes and your current kind of argument with the Australian government?
Yeah. So in the end of 2019, my son was in a soccer club. He was the most valuable junior player in the club. So I was obviously a part of the Facebook page. It was a public page. And on that public page, I saw an image of a male in a dress receiving an award in a female team. And I took issue with that, obviously. I went through all of the like the right order, I guess. I went to the club, I went to the regional association, I went to the state association, I went to the federal association, and was shut down at every single turn, being told that people can play in whatever category they identify with. And I just thought that's absolute nonsense. Through that process, we sent, because Football Australia would not answer my calls, would not answer my emails, would not answer anything on any social media platform. Our organisation, Binary, organised an email campaign where 12,000 emails were sent asking the very simple question: what is a woman, and what is the point of having male and female categories if they're meaningless, if anybody can enter either of them? And then we also found out that there was some players, not just one player, but some players, and the audience may know of Riley Dennis, who's one of those players, was playing in the Women's League in Sydney, Australia. So my organisation, as a third-party political campaigner in Australia, we were highlighting these issues. We were using the examples of these people, only taking information from the public domain. So Football New South Wales and the football clubs themselves had posted this information. We reposted the information. We didn't dox anyone. We didn't even name them. We just took screenshots and showed the images. Then on the end of March 2023, I had 2 police officers turn up at my home.
Okay, let's pause it there, because that's I have reasons for that being my favorite bit too, and I want to enjoy it a little bit. You're not allowed to tell people who this person is.
There's two people. One I can't mention at all. Yeah.
Right. Okay, but you can mention Riley Dennis. And long-time subscribers to this channel will know Riley Dennis as the subject of, I think, 2 of Magdalene Byrne's best videos. And on those videos, Riley Dennis is essentially arguing that if women don't have sex with trans-identified males, right, whether they have a penis or not, then they're being bigoted. So he's literally trying to conversion therapy his young audience and shame them into accepting sex with trans-identified men like that. That is Riley Dennis. And let me just ask a couple of questions. Is Riley Dennis, this is, of course, now, this is normal, I call it normal football, not Australian rules football.
Correct. Soccer. Yeah, we call it soccer in Australia, but I think most of the world calls it football. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But of course, this probably wouldn't happen in Australian rules, because a woman would be instantly killed.
Oh, well, it actually has happened in Australian rules. I've had contact with a 17-year-old player who had, so in Aussie rules, you have what's called, you can take a mark and you run up someone's back basically to grab the football. And a girl collapsed on the field under the weight of a man. But the issue is, as I'll tell in my story, Graham, is that we can't speak out about it here, because this is what happens to you. You get reported under the Anti-Discrimination Act, because in 2013, our first female Prime Minister, our Julia Gillard, did the audacious act of removing definitions of male and female from the Act. And now our Sex Discrimination Act has no protections for sex. It doesn't even define sex. Our Sex Discrimination Commissioner can't tell us what sex is, can't tell us what a woman is. The only protections in the Act are for people who identify as. So how do you identify as man if we don't know what a man is? How do you identify as a woman if you don't know what a woman is? But that's the incredibly comical and ludicrous situation that we are finding ourselves in Australia. You know, I don't think Yes Minister could have gone that far. I don't think you've ever gone that far in comedy writing, but it has exceeded comedy, and that is our reality. And now people like myself and Sal are going through court because there's no protections for women in Australia. There's only protections for men who identify as women, and only that's it. So we face great penalties and really difficult situations.
And Australia, for some reason, is proving one of the last to turn around on the subject of puberty blockers. New Zealand has just reversed course. And Australia is still locked in this spiral, it seems, you know.
Okay, well, they won't even debate it. We have politicians, fantastic politicians like Pauline Hanson, Alex Antich, Claire Chandler, who have all tried to put forward motions to discuss these things, and the Labor government just shut them down every time.
Absolutely, yeah. And the reason is because their defenders can't defend it. And our side makes points that are so good that they can't refute them, so they just avoid the argument altogether. Who's the biggest coward as far as that goes in Australian politics, Kirralie?
Look, that's a big field, but you know, Anthony Albanese, our Prime Minister, is just, I don't even have words to describe him. He is a caricature of a person, let alone a PM. So, you know, and it all falls on his shoulders.
Keir Starmer over here said he would end the Tory culture wars, and all he's done is made it like a perennial war that is always going on, that has to be fought and fought and fought. For instance, they won't implement the 4 Women Scotland ruling. You know, it's absolutely disgraceful. But anyway, let's cut back to the knock on the door.
Please.
When you opened the door, were you expecting the police to be there for something else, or were you familiar with this type of harassment?
I'd had a phone call from the police in February to warn me that my behaviour may be breaking the law. And when I asked them what behaviour, the police officer said, "Oh, you know what behaviour?" And I'm like, "No, I actually don't know what behaviour you're talking about." And this phone call went round and round and round. In the end, it was basically, "Are you talking about me saying that men are not women and that men shouldn't be in women's sports?" And he said, "Oh, well, I'm just saying you could be breaking the law." And I'm like, "What law are you talking about?" He could give me nothing. So that was my first introduction with police in New South Wales. And then, a couple of weeks later, these 2 police officers turn up at my door. And that was quite comical as well. The really sad part of it all was I asked my husband to film it, and you know, us being in our 50s and technology, all the rest of it, I'd already pressed record. He picked up the phone and stopped recording, thinking that he was recording. We got a little bit, but you could tell the police were quite embarrassed, I think, in issuing these papers that I had to stop talking about these things. I had to appear in a local court in Sydney. Football New South Wales, one of their representatives, was trying to get an apprehension of violence order against me because she was saying that my language was violent. And
this brings me to something, Kirralie, that I've been having an argument with people over the last few days. I'm not sure if you know much about the Enoch Burke case in a little bit, yeah. Well, he's a conservative Christian as well. And what's really fascinating about him is the way that no one wants to talk about the source of why he was fired, but everyone wants to talk about his behavior after he was fired. And as I keep saying to people, from J.K. Rowling to yourself, to me, to everyone who dares to speak up about this issue, there is no correct way to speak about this issue. Ardal O'Hanlon says that, you know, he said recently that I went about it the wrong way. You know, it's great to be lectured by someone who never went about it at all. You know,
exactly.
There's no way to talk about this issue without having at least them attempt to destroy your life. I mean,
that's right. So I was told, you know, that they were going to try and apprehend my violent behavior, and my violent behavior was saying They're men. I took, as I said, information from the public domain and reposted it, which myself, my lawyers, and everyone else believed was a lawful act in Australia, that if it's in the public domain, if it's posted by the football associations themselves, we could repost it, but apparently not. I went through 6 months, really torturous and expensive lawfare in that case. So Football Australia backed down. Riley Dennis, it was an apprehension of violence order brought by the police in that instance. We got to court before the magistrate, and then the police stood up and said, we're withdrawing. We will make no apology. We will make no explanation. So I have no idea what happened there. But then they started these vilification actions against me. It's ended up in 10 times in court because they went through the wrong tribunals. You know, it's very complex, and I even get confused of where we've ended up. But then last year I had 2 separate hearings for these players. I had to take the stand. I was questioned for hours. The other side particularly upset that I refused to call these men she, her, or miss.
That's so funny. That's so funny when they get angry about that. It's like, we're
really
not lying.
Particularly when I've sworn to tell the truth. I'm in court.
We're not lying. We're not committing perjury on the stand, despite you begging us to. We're not committing perjury, No,
and my little joke is, I always say, I don't care if I'm the last man standing, I will not be forced to lie. My speech cannot be compelled, and you can do whatever you like to me. But you know what? No matter if you find me guilty, no matter what penalty you bring against me, those men will still be men. Nothing will change that fact. So,
and not just that. And I know, again, you can't say this, and don't even make an expression when I say this, but like, Riley Dennis is not just a man. Riley Dennis is a predatory man. The video that he made, that Magdalene Burns made about him, showed very clearly that he is trying to shame young women into having sex with him. That is what he is trying to do. And the fact that he is now on a football team with, I believe, and maybe you can guide me on this, 5 other trans women players?
4 that we know of. That's right.
So this is another, again, as you were saying earlier, you could not make it up. This is not just one trans woman stealing a place from a woman on a football team. This is 4 or 5 of them on a women's football team.
Yeah, that's one team in one competition, Graham. This is happening all over Australia. And, so many people obviously get upset.
Blows my mind.
Yeah, but they get upset and say, why won't the girls just boycott? Why don't they just walk off the field? And unlike America, where there is freedom of speech protections, where there are, liberties that we don't have in Australia, these girls, I've sat with them, Graham. I've sat with the opponents who have cried on my shoulder, who have said, their clubs, and this is what really makes me mad, because it is the officials who really should take responsibility here, have told those girls that if they object, if they don't turn up, if they forfeit, they will be fined, they could be expelled, and they will be made an example of, like I'm being made an example of, and that they will be reported under the Anti-Discrimination Act. Now, this is really unfair for, some of these girls also are underage, let me tell you. They're under 18, playing against these 30-year-old men on the same field, same change rooms, all the rest of it.
Are you joking?
These girls, I'm not joking. But, again, I'll probably get in trouble for saying that. Who knows? But I don't care, because these girls deserve protections. The parents are being gaslit and threatened and told that they can't object. The sporting clubs have towed the line, even though there actually are protections in the Sex Discrimination Act that if speed, strength, stamina is an issue, you can discriminate according to sex, but none of the clubs want to, because they are local clubs. They don't have the finances, the resources, or the ability to take on these legal battles. And so these girls, and then some of them are now in their 20s. They've played soccer their entire lives. They're coming up to being semi-professional or professional. And now they just face great humiliation in defeat. They risk injury. They risk so many things for a sport that they love. They didn't consent to playing with men. We literally have government ads all over X, all over social media, telling us to understand what consent means when it comes to sexual activity. But these girls don't consent to having men on their soccer teams, we have Aussie rules, tennis, athletics, swimming, netball, you name it, like any sport, we have this in Australia. And all the time we're facing these girls who are so distressed that either have to self-exclude or they have to take the risk on the sporting field. It's not fair. Anyone who speaks up is threatened, gaslit, or penalised. So, as I said, I was found guilty of unlawful vilification. Next week, I will find out my penalties. It could be up to $200,000 in fines, and issuing a ridiculous statement that those men are women and that I was wrong and everyone else who is on my side is wrong. And
well, Kirralie, all I could say is I'm sorry I haven't had my focus on this story as much, because it is just one of those that in fact, it actually comes with a few of its own problems, right? Because if you tell people there's a team in women's sport that's like got 5 male players on it, and not just that, but they dominated. They dominated.
100%. They won prize money. They were grand finalists. They were the top goal scorers. They really dominated.
Yeah. And that still your government is so embarrassed, so scared of being embarrassed that they can't back down on it. It's absolutely crazy. And we are all looking at Australia, I have to say, with a lot of sadness at the moment, just the same way I think a lot of people are looking at Ireland with a lot of sadness. And the UK, I mean, it's just these kinds of things have to be reversed very, very quickly. Hopefully that'll happen soon at the BBC here, because if it doesn't, not only will we keep having harassment victims like yourself, but we won't learn anything, and we'll go into the next mass delusion completely unprepared, and completely unarmored against what can happen next. And on that note, let's end. Kirralie, I could talk to you forever. I'm not sure what time it is. We've only done half an hour. That's great. But on what then is to look forward to? What is now? I know it's confusing, but what is the legal? When do you have to be in court, and what do you have to expect?
Yeah, look, so next Tuesday, the 25th, the judgment will come out of what my penalties are. It could be anything, but we don't know what that will be at this stage. But I have been found guilty, so there will be some kind of penalty. We will be appealing to either the Supreme Court and then High Court, or we will go straight to the High Court. I'm not sure. For another player, I'm also under an apprehension of violence order, which I cannot speak about, but we have sought leave for the High Court there as well. And the issues that obviously must be addressed in Australia is that there are no sex-based protections for women, and that there's penalties if we speak about it or object in any way, shape or form. I think about, the Olympics, Imam Khalif punching women in the head and calling it sport. I think about Leah Thomas, who really blew the whole thing open in America. We're not allowed to use those examples here in Australia. So people either don't believe that it's happening, they don't know that it's happening. Even you yourself, who's so enmeshed in this issue, Graham, have so little awareness of what's really going on in Australia because we can't talk about it. So
what do you mean? What do you mean you can't talk about Leah Thomas?
Oh no, we can. We can there, but we can't talk about what's happening in Australia. We can only talk about what's happening overseas and use those case studies and examples.
Oh, I see. Excuse me.
We use the examples of what's happening in Australia, so people are either ignorant or just don't know what's going on. And our media is so afraid. I've had so many people in the media say, we would love to report on your story, but our lawyers won't let us. Sky News here in Australia have done a great job. The Australian is starting to expose it as well, but very little media coverage and very little accurate media coverage as well.
Yeah.
Sal Grover, myself, if we get these cases to the High Court, what it will come down to is what is a woman and what rights do we have in law as a woman. So they're the things that we're fighting for. I'm so thrilled, though, Graham. I had to raise $260,000 to even attempt to go to the High Court. So justice is not for all. Justice is not free in Australia. You need to have an extraordinary amount of money, which I don't have, but we had thousands of people donate, and we now have reached that goal. So I'm very confident, yes, that we can keep going. So if, you know, an overweight, middle-aged housewife from the sticks in Australia can do this, anyone can do this. So I hope that people will be inspired and encouraged, and just speak truthfully and plainly. That's all we have to do. And we will eventually win. The pendulum will eventually come back. You know, Sal and myself and others may, you know, we've lost skin in the game. We've shed some blood and some tears, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
On that note, I don't think there's a better note to go out on. Thank you so much, Kirralie. Please keep your attitude intact. They're going to put you put it to the test as much as they can. But it seems like you're completely equal to it. So good for you. And let's check in again at some after the trial at some point and see where you are. Okay.
Thanks, Graham.
Thank you. See you soon. Goodbye, everyone. Bye. See you next time.